want to remind people that this is not my word. This is the word of the Lord. I am merely the messenger. And so as we go forth and we unpack that reality, I hope, I really hope that this causes you to look at the gospel and go, God, what are you calling me to do? So we're going to unpack Matthew 28, verses 16 through 20. Again, Matthew 28 is the chapter. We're doing verses 16 through 20. I'm going to read it. If you have your scripture, read along. That'll be awesome. If not, I'm going to rock it here. So without further ado, it is the Great Commission. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped, but some doubted. Quick context. So this is post-resurrection. And the doubt isn't, I don't know if I love you or follow you anymore, Jesus. It's, you said you were going to rise again, and that really happened. So when we read that the disciples doubted, it's not like, oh, Peter, I'm going to deny you kind of doubted. It's more of a, everything you just said happened. I don't believe my own eyes. Do I? So it's that kind of doubted. So when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded to you. Surely, surely know that I am with you always to the very ends of the age. So this is the easy, fun part. What is our purpose in life? Very clearly, it's to go forth and make disciples. It's to share the good news and to do it confidently, knowing that God is with us at all times. This, however, though, is also where the struggle becomes real. Because how you're called to do it may look different than how I'm called to do it, who may look different than the person next to us called to do it, who may look different than the person whose call it is in Nashville to do it, or the person in Seattle, or the person in Costa Rica, or the person over in Zimbabwe. The end game of our lives, our actual calling in lives, our purpose is to go forth and share the great news of the peace and the freedom and all that is entailed in walking with Jesus Christ. That is our purpose. How we walk it out, that's where it gets muddy. And I feel like if you struggle with being overweight, that's where it gets even more challenging. Because quite often we have allowed, or we have passively allowed, or maybe we just realize that our weight is so much of a focus in our lives that we're not always focusing on the Great Commission. And so that's where I really want to sort of settle in today's message, because I feel like we can all agree that our goal in life is to go forth and spread the gospel and to share the good news. Like, I feel like that's pretty simple. But where it really comes into heavy lifting is, how can we make sure that our weight and our struggle isn't keeping us from that? And again, this has nothing to do with salvation. I don't believe that your weight will cost you your salvation at all. But I do believe that there's a lot of opportunity on earth that we may find ourselves missing. There's a lot of joys and a lot of pleasure that comes in the Christian experience that when we get so focused on the weight, we miss. And to me, that's one of the greatest shames of all, is to look back at your life and say, man, if I'd have just done this sooner, if I'd have just taken the 18 months, lost the weight and been done with it and move on to actually fulfill the purpose that God has called me to. And for me, that has been one of the truest things that has allowed me to keep the weight off, because just as a reminder, lost the first 120 pounds in 9 months. It was fun, gained it all back and more within about 4 or 5 years. But what really pivoted me into the weight loss for the second time, and not just to lose it, but to keep it off, has been the mentality of, how can I get this off as quickly and as safely as possible so that I can be done with this part of my life? And I know when you're in the struggle, that seems like a very foreign concept because so many of us have lived this, like this has become our identity. And the thing is that very few people, and if we happen to work together, then I have sort of a pivot strategy of what does life look like as a new normal. But if you've ever lost weight and then gained it back before, I would say that the reason you gained the weight back wasn't because you failed or even the program failed, but where the program did fail was to prepare you to have this new identity, to not live as an overweight person, to not allow this to consume you. And so because for so often we accept programs that never give us that transition into this not being a struggle, we go back to the normal patterns which we've had for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And because we don't know better, we just don't know better. And so we get stuck in this perpetual struggle where 30 years of our lives have been consumed by a weight loss battle that, if we can remove the emotion, should scientifically take maybe a year. And I say that not to cause anyone to go, dang it, I've wasted so much time. No, that is not the point. My point is to say, you have 6 months. Let's kill it for 6 months. Kill it being like, let's just take a logical approach and not stray too far. But let's kill it for 6 months, be done with this, and move on to all the rest of our lives, knowing that this was a season. And I think we can all understand that because we've all had seasons in our lives. Sometimes we're a parent for a season and then the kids grow up. And sometimes we're a student for a season and then we graduate college. And sometimes we're a spouse for a season. And like all these things come and go. And quite often it's hard to separate that weight can be one of those things. And so when it comes down to purpose, what I would genuinely challenge you with would be the concept of what would it look like to allow your weight loss to be a part of your testimony, which you can share at any time you want or not. Here is some of the greatest things that have happened to me. Here are, my fault, grammar's hard. I've only had 1 cup of coffee. Here are some of the greatest things that have happened to me since weight loss. One, the greatest compliment that I get on a daily basis is, but you look very normal. Well, minus this, but like, you look very average. I'd have never known you even struggled with weight. And that was so amazing for me because when I lost weight the second time, I was doing music. And if you know anything about the music industry, those are some fine looking individuals. But they also have that standard. And the dark side of the entertainment industry is just how replaceable you are if you don't meet a certain image. And so, right? Yeah, skinny jeans. Come on, dude. It's like put your girlfriend's pants back where you got them. Put on some regular dude pants. Make sure you get that gusset. We don't want to see any of that. Anyways, point being, when you get into music, there's this visual standard that you have to appeal to. And so in my own life, and this just expands more on the prodigal wasteland mentality, I went from, all right, overweight, obese, it's going to kill me, to losing weight, pretty average, to, dang, Jeremy, you look good. But at the cost of like 900 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day, which for a 6-foot male who was running 4 to 5 miles a day and lifting 3 days or 4 days a week is not enough calories. Like that's just not enough food. And so got to this point where I basically traded the shackles of obesity for the shackles of this skinny bass player image. And I just got to the point where I was miserable. And it's like, why? Like, why? Like, I was already married at that point. Like, no amount of extra abs was going to make me more desirable. And so I really got to the point where it's like, what is the point? And so I came to the conclusion that, holy crap, my entire life, people have paid attention to me because of how I looked. I either commanded attention because I was so large that I literally was the elephant in the room, half pun, or it was like, dang, who's that music dude? Looking pretty good. Looks like Jimmy Neutron's been lifting. But no one ever really got to know me. And so I got to the point where it was like, what would it look like if I actually developed a personality? What would that look like? Because so much of my life has been this struggle of I'm the fat kid, and if I'm not the fat kid, I'm making fun of the fat kid who used to be me as a way of coping with I don't know how to not be the fat kid. So what would it look like if rather than trying to play that role that I no longer had to, I actually leaned into the embracing identity of what Christ had for me. And at the time it was scary because and I know that some have struggled a lot longer than me, but I went on my first diet when I was 5. So literally when you think of cognitive memory, from 5 until 25, that's 20 years and that's all I had known. Like that's all I had known was being the fat kid. So to be an adult and not have that identity anymore was super it was anxiety inducing because it's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? But I got to the point where even losing the weight didn't make me happy. Like, yeah, I looked good, but again, like, do I need it? Like, I had a 2 pack, did I have 4? Like, it didn't matter. And so I just wanted to be me. I wanted to explore like who I actually was through the grace of God. And so I got to this point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to adhere to science when it comes to metrics. So for me, 200 pounds, like if I go over it, I'm just not trying. If I go to like 180, I'm trying way too hard, and then you have to question my motives. But between 190 and 200, we're good. I look, I look average. Like, and that's the thing, which by the way, totally confuses personal trainers when I go to personal trainer conventions. They're like, who let this guy? He must be new. And I'm like, oh, I have so many letters you don't even know behind my name. But I look so average because I wanted to be me. And I wanted to know the best parts of me and I wanted to know the worst parts of me. So I could really lean into the best parts of me that God could use for his glory. And I wanted to refine the negative parts of me that I had built up as a way to guard me from this identity that I no longer needed. And so one of the greatest blessings has been I can walk into a room and if we need to talk about music, well, that's perfect. I don't need to talk at all about my weight loss because that if it's a youth ministry event, they don't really care about my weight loss, so we don't have to talk about that. We can talk about tons of other experiences, and I can still minister. But in these situations, well, weight really matters, and my story can lend some hopefully help and benefit to anyone watching, and you can learn from my mistakes and hopefully my victories, and then just take exactly what I did and you apply it and it's successful. But the second greatest benefit, and I would say of everything, this is probably the greatest benefit. The health benefits have been amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like I walk out of my yearly blood work like a champion. I'm like, yeah, holding up a belt. Like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Check out my glucose. But the benefit that I have from a spiritual level is I never have to wonder how am I going to share the gospel? Because if the opportunity presents itself and I share, oh, I've lost 200 pounds, and people go, how did you do that? Well, yeah, there was science involved, but really, Jesus helped my mentality and my heart, my perspective. And if not for God and the Holy Spirit, if not for that tandem of three working in my mindset, I never would have lost the weight. And so I can literally say that literally through the power of Christ, I lost the weight in a non-legalistic way. This makes people ask a lot of questions because they're like, that's not the Jesus I know. I'm like, oh, awesome. Well, let me tell you about the Jesus I know. And then instantaneously, I'm not Bible bashing them. I'm simply sharing my testimony and letting them know about a God who has made such an impact in my life. Now, there are times I don't have to. Sometimes I get to talk about my music past or my comedy past or the TED Talks I've done. Like that's not always left out, but it can always be a part of the equation. And I feel like that in and of itself, I feel is one of the truest emblematic statements of being all things to all people. Because I've got that in my back pocket. And if you've ever struggled with being overweight or having body identity issues or having an eating disorder, then we can talk about that all day long. We don't have to, but we can. And I'm never at a loss for how do I share the gospel? Because people want to know what I actually mean by saying Christ-centered weight loss. Like, what does it actually mean? Did you read the Bible and you lost weight? Well, no, but yeah. And so what I would challenge everyone here watching would be don't abandon your physical goals. But as a supplement to your physical goals, what would it look like if you took this almost as a missional cause, knowing that people are going to ask you questions about your weight loss. How are you doing it? What's the secret? What do you have that I don't? Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That doesn't make sense. Explain that to me. I'd love to. So for me, when I read this, the Great Commission, it gets me excited about this concept of weight loss on mission, of where people are going to see the outside of us and they're going to ask questions as they do. Like, hey, you've lost some weight. That looks great. You look amazing. What are you doing? So we get their attention with what we're doing on the external. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be the physical side. It could be the fact that we're on a weight loss program while smiling. How many people do you know go to the gym and are smiling? Most people are there and they're angry. Like they're way too angry. Like the thing is, anyways, I won't go down there. But whether they see your physical results or they see the fact that you're smiling while eating a salad, there should be something glistening about you if Jesus is a part of your process. You should have those natural fruits of the Spirit because you've invited him in. And if that's the case, people are going to want to know, like, what's different? Because I ate 4 pieces of lettuce. Now I want to punch a mule. Like, well, first off, don't punch a mule. But like, why are you so angry? Well, because I hate lettuce. Well, do you, or is it but it starts the conversation. And that's the glory of this. So what is your weight loss purpose? It's to fulfill the Great Commission. It's to go forth and make disciples. I feel like that's easy. We all have that purpose. We're all called to go forth and make disciples. How we do it, though, is going to be up to us because every single one of you is totally different than me. And that's amazing because I think one of me is annoying sometimes, let alone many me's. So there are people in your realm that you can talk to that I have no right to. Some of you guys have so many life experiences way different than mine that you'll be able to connect with that I won't. And that's great because we are the body. And because of that, also that's why I don't sing, but because of that, if we're equipped with this Christ-centered mindset, then when we act in tandem, I can minister to those that God has put in front of me because I can relate. Likewise, you can minister to those who God has put in front of you because you can relate. And since so many of us struggle with being overweight and having body image issues, we can talk to it from a place of peace because we're in the process of having that redeemed as well. But we can also point it back to Jesus. So it's never really about us. Like we get to be the vessel, we get the blessing of the health benefits, we get the blessing of the opportunity to play our part in this Great Commission, but it's never about us. People think it's about us, but as soon as we get that, Jesus. And hopefully you see that with my life. Hopefully you see, I take every moment I can to be like, look, this happened and this is amazing. Jeremy's not amazing. Jeremy's just been very fortunate to understand that these things have happened and this is my part. And I hope I'm doing a great job of saying like, yeah, I've got some great advice, but the only way it's going to ever make sense is through Jesus. So to really get the most out of whatever I'm saying, please go to Jesus. And in tandem, those things are going to be unstoppable. So my genuine prayer for you is if you are discouraged or if you want just genuine encouragement, check your heart. Why are you doing this? If you're doing this to look sexy, let that be a byproduct, but not the reason. Because I believe you can have it all. I believe you can be completely satisfied with who you are internally through the grace of God, through the indwelling of the Spirit, and through the salvation of Jesus Christ. And because of that, that should give you the sanity to address all of the back traumas that have brought us here. Because no one here is perfect. And you hear that and you're like, dang it. But no, no, no. That is great. For me, that's one of those statements like life is unfair. Because life is unfair. But it's unfair to all of us, which then kind of makes it fair. Think about that. And since we're all dealing with something, that's okay. We're all dealing with something. None of us are less, none of us are more. I've got my baggage. I wear it as an L5 issue with my back because I had this tummy for so long and I'm working through it. So yeah, Jeremy can do all this stuff now, but he still might throw his back out when a balloon arrives. So like, right? We've all got our issues. And the commonality of this is the gospel frees us from those issues internally so that externally we can actually apply the solutions. So when we start philosophically with what is our goal, what is our purpose, what is our why behind this, and we allow the grace of God to infiltrate all of those internal factors that would ever block us from doing these things, and we allow that grace to say, look, that was my past, and that subconscious saved me then, but I'm in the process of redemption, and that mentality isn't going to save me now. I've got to be who God called me to be, and I'm moving on. Once you've got the grace of Christ to work with you internally on that, then externally, when it comes to things like exercise or nutritious behaviors, you've already won two of the battles. The struggle is no longer as hard because hopefully you're not looking at lettuce saying, I'm going to deprive myself. No, you're saying, I've not had nutrients I should have had for 30 years. I think I'm going to have some broccoli, because the whole goal in all of this is health and wellness and being in a place where we have health and wellness. And if we're living in a way that is spiritually healthy first, then not only will we achieve physical health, but we'll be able to sustain it. And that is my hope and my prayer, and dare I say, my goal for you all, is to not just lose weight so you can be done with this season of your life, but to move on to the next identity that Christ has prepared for you once all of this physical baggage gets out of the way. So I'm going to end with some prayer, and then we're going to open up for questions. Lord God, thank you so much